Backseat Drivers time. Good evening and welcome to Backseat Drivers number 10 for 2024. Pray.com to the moon. Did you... Well, on tonight we've got myself, Dave, and Matt, who signed on for 2025.
I've signed myself on. I'm taking the initiative.
The contract extension.
I gave myself a contract extension
with the options. Did you see the IndyCar crash?
I saw bits of it because it popped up.
Bob went flying.
Well, isn't that usually because he wants to be closer to God and he's like, lift me up?
Well, I thought it was probably most appropriate for someone to go flying up in the air. A little bit of, we're celebrating Will Power's win, and then the TV cuts across, and you're like, geez, what the going on here? So, yeah.
Well, it's been a while since a F1 car's decided to launch itself, to the moon.
Yeah, that's it. It's definitely not as exciting the crashes at the moment, except for Perez at Monaco.
Oh, I was gonna say Lance being Lance and just like, what's that my new favorite word? Concertinaing. That was I don't know if we call that a crash, but
that wasn't as spectacular. It was stupid, but not as spectacular. Yeah,
disappointing.
So, I didn't change the background.
No, the background's
I just noticed that. Yeah.
It's falling apart.
Yeah. Watch this, people. Watch the magic of the internet. It's just uploading.
From Sydney.
Hey! There we go.
Everyone's getting around. No one,
What's E-Scooter doing in Sydney?
I think secret negotiation deals.
Negotiating what?
Probably getting E-Scooter, the Scooter Championships to come to Sydney.
Okay. That makes sense.
Because, if you're going to bring all around Europe and Sydney.
Yep. Okay. Is that their replacement because they can't get Formula One?
I believe so. I think they're still angry. I think Adelaide's probably still upset too.
Yeah, it's Adelaide really.
Flag
marshalling on the weekend. There you go. Why are you a secret?
Because he's not allowed to tell anyone.
Okay, he'll be at turn 1.
Oh,
Rob was in Sydney yesterday, and apparently the best part is leaving the place. Not a fan of Sydney.
I think Rob's just an unhappy man that all the pieces are falling into place. That Dan might.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, a few weeks ago, News.com reported that Dan Ricciardo was out.
Also, Dave, I'll stop you there. News.com reporting is not a sentence you should ever use because News.com, Dave, I've worked out, is run by like 4 people, and the person that does the sports watches Drive to Survive, occasionally watches Fox Sport, and then goes, well, I've seen enough. And then they'll write an article like that Mark Scaife guy, he can drive. What's he been up to lately? Also, Schumacher, he was pretty good. You reckon? I reckon he should. I don't know why he's not driving anymore.
Yeah.
They're not the best. Also, I've got to ask you about that, Dave. So on the championship, let's be honest, Dan Ricciardo is not where he should be. Maybe it'd be better if he was up, higher up. Here's the thing, though. There's always an article, Dan Ricciardo needs to quit. He's no good for the sport. He may as well join a trolley league or something. Yet no one's ever talking about Bottas, who's done, let's be honest, essentially nothing this year.
He's had a hard time. I mean, they're fairly lost car-wise, I think, at the moment. But the funny thing is, like, essentially Audi's they're cleaning house as well, by the sounds of things. But then apparently Bottas is like second or third on the list of most of the teams.
But I don't understand why they're
as
not
a driver.
Yeah, well,
because we get the Australian media. That's very much, tall poppy. So once Dan goes, then their thing will be, Oscar's not doing well enough.
Oh, Lando's much better than Oscar. Why is Oscar driving?
Yeah. Because that was, Mark Webber just got hammered forever because he wasn't Seb Vettel.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fun to see when they're like, Lando does this, and where's Oscar been this whole time? We've never noticed him because you were too busy, ripping into someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it blows my mind that there are drivers who have done less, and I mean, a lot of it I feel like it is jealousy for drivers who have, let's be honest, won more than Dan, but are less recognizable. You've got, and I think what's his face, everyone's third favorite Canadian, really emphasized that when he was like, I don't even know why Dan's here. He's here because you now got new fans. You've got people who, want to watch this sport. You probably have you probably have a commentating gig because of that. Otherwise, I never watched it in the mid-90s, Dave, but did they have a lot of commentators, or was it basically just two?
It was just the two. They didn't do, well, especially here, we didn't get the lead-in stuff. So it was pretty bad, the TV coverage. You'd get, say, I'm trying to think, it might have been a few minutes before it started, and you got Alan Jones and Big Darrell Eastlake doing a bit of a recap of, if anything big was to talk about for the weekend, and then they'd go into the race. So off memory, if the races were starting, say, like 10 o'clock, we'd get the coverage from, say, 11 o'clock. It'd be a delayed like an hour. So say 10 past 11 or whatever, they'd do a quick little run through of, if something big had happened during the weekend, if someone had had a crash or whatever, and then probably covered off, if anyone had signed somewhere or, any of the news.
Also, did you get qualifying and all that?
No. So qualifying was, I'm trying to think when they started televising qualifying. It was when it went to Channel 10, because originally when I started watching it was on Channel 9. And then that's when, with Channel 10, and it started getting a lot more serious and I think Channel 10 used to do, they'd start maybe half an hour before. It'd actually be live, and they'd say start a telecast at 9:30, and they'd do their own kind of lead-in. And then I think that ran basically all the way through to the Foxtel deal.
Yeah, so Channel 9 had the races till 2002. I mean, 2003 now. Because I remember not watching it, but hearing it from you and other people. Because 03 was probably just before Webber started, or around the same time.
Webber was 02.
So I would have started seeing, because that's when I bought the Webber Williams T-shirt from the discount.
Well, that would have been later on, because Webber was with Minardi first and then Jaguar for 2 years. Yeah, so he started 05 with Williams. And
I would have bought that probably 06 because I wanted it cheap at the old discount F1 shop. Yeah, because I was just thinking, you wouldn't have had like Ted's Notebook in the early 2000s.
No, and then after the race, you get like Darrell and Alan doing a quick rundown of the race. Like and because the world feed didn't have ad breaks on it, So they'd cut the commentary because wherever it was coming from at the time would be run, like we were getting the BBC feed, and that would run through no ads. But because it was Channel 9, they'd randomly like stop where there was like a pause in the commentary, and they'd stop it, and you go to an ad break, and then you'd come back from the ad break, and then you would have Alan Jones and Darrell Eastlake talking for a period of time until they're like, oh, there's a break, and then feed. Because say if there's something had happened in the ad break, and they'd be like, Schumacher's having a really good race. He's, killing it kind of thing. And then, we cut back and then cut back into the feed where you even though like it was delayed a lot of the time as well, they would still cut out the bit of racing, the 3 minutes of the ad break.
I think the only good thing you can take from early commentary, I just realized there would have been no Danica Patrick telling you
about lizard people.
Lizard people. I watched that. It's a watch.
I couldn't watch the actual one.
Oh no, I didn't watch the actual one, Dave. No. I need to keep these brain cells. I've only got so many left.
Yeah, I watched about maybe 2 minutes of the actual one and went, I can't do this. Just on that, it was when I started watching, I'm 90% sure it was Dr. Jonathan Palmer with Murray in the commentary. So there you go.
Was Murray Walker
fact check?
He was the iconic one that like everyone remembers. Yes. I thought so. Yeah, he's the.
Yeah. And then after Jonathan Palmer, it was Martin Brundle that took over. I'm pretty sure it went straight from Palmer to Brundle when Brundle retired from full time. And then he's been doing it since, I think, 98.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, which I still think he does a pretty good job.
Martin Brundle?
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, which obviously he's been stepping back. Crofty gets annoying because of his obvious bias with the British drivers. I think he'd probably be better off more as a lead kind of commentator if there was, say, 3 in there.
Well, that's right. Murray Walker had the go. That's where I heard it. That's what I remember of him.
Yeah.
He'd say, go, go, go.
Yeah. There's a few. You've got to remember that F1 is if spelt backwards and all sorts of.
I tell you who else I feel sorry for watching some of those commentary is when Jenson Button has to stand next to Danica Patrick and the other. Who are the other two? Like, at least Danica Patrick was a driver. Like, I'll give her that.
Yeah.
Maybe not a good one.
So you've got Rachel Brooks and I'm trying to think of Natalie Pinkham.
Yeah.
Both of them are just TV presenters. But then I've gone blank trying to think of her name. The one who used to work as a strategist with Jet Force India and then Aston Martin.
So there's a few here.
Bernie Collins.
Yep.
Yeah, I really like Bernie Collins.
There's Ted Kravitz. He doesn't need to be there. He is the
Ted used to be really good, and then
he's
something happened at the end of 2021, and he kind of has lost his mind.
What happened at the end of 2021, Dave? Well, nothing major. I can't remember.
Yeah. He seems to be holding on to it longer than Hamilton has.
I think Hamilton is. I think the reason Hamilton won is I feel like he may have let go of it because I feel like for a while he held on to it as, and I think I said this before, it wasn't one race. It was, this is the 2022 championship. I need to win everything. I'm not thinking about the next race. I'm thinking about all 67 of them, and I need to win all of them. And if I don't win one, the whole thing's ruined, and I'm just going to pack it all in.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can get more people winning different races. Ideally, we get Ferrari winning, or just a
Still haven't
combination.
had Oscar or Sainz win a race this year, have we?
Oscar hasn't won, which I predicted he will, and he won Australia.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He was.
Remember 400 weeks ago.
It's because there's so many.
Well, we're 37 races in, Dave. It's understandable that you forgot about the first three.
They do blend a little bit.
Yes.
That's yeah. Especially then when you add some sprints.
Fun fact: there were actually 3 races over each weekend. It wasn't one race compacted in. So there were 3 different winners, and it was 3 different locations. They didn't just race around Europe.
The problem's going to be when they realise e-scooter. I'll write down your predictions at some point
on the hack-proof paper.
I should do it now before I've run out. So sorry about this, people. We're super professional around here. I've had to start a new bit of paper because the other one's full.
Oh no!
What were we talking about?
I was going to say, you were saying the different winners.
Before we were rudely interrupted.
Oscar, I think, will win a race this year. Like I said, I feel like some of my predictions are slowly coming true. So I said, Dave, number 8, one more different winner this season, and I put Oscar in question marks. But technically, my main thing was there'd be a new winner. So can I put that down as a tick?
Well, half
a tick. So what color can I give that? Like blue? I'll give it blue.
Yeah.
All right. So what else have I the rest of them I've still going. But so I'm currently out of 13 points, I'm on half a point. So
So you're doing better than Bottas?
Yeah, basically, I'm doing better than most.
He's one of the pointless ones, isn't he?
Yeah, and actually, I was watching more Sargent videos. I kind of feel sorry for Sargent. I like him.
He doesn't deserve to be there in the current state of play, but he's not that bad.
I feel like
he's the worst out there, but say if you put him into, I mean, like you look at someone like Sorokin, Sargent's well above that level. And then you can go down the list of people in previous, but where we're at now, there's nowhere to hide.
No.
Like he is 20th out of 20. And that includes probably King Lance.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
so that's fun.
The thing is, I feel like both Forgotten Chinaman and Bottas are only there for memes. They're only there for wacky videos. Like
the hard thing is, I think that Audi's kind of they probably had a bit of the wrong attitude. Like, oh, we'll take this over, and we don't really need to do anything until we come in. And I think now they've started to realize, like, oh, we're going to be in trouble in 2026 if we just think we're going to cruise off into the distance. Like, we need to beef this thing up. So that's where I'd say as well, like, as ridiculous as it probably is a bit, which Hulkenberg's been doing exceptionally well the last few rounds somehow.
He's done some sort of dark arts wizardry. He's done a deal with somebody, and he's going, look, let me race this car, and at the end of the season, I'll lose a finger or something. I don't care. Yeah. I just want to finish above Lance. That's it.
Whatever he's done, but like they're employing proper drivers for next year and things like that. Not to say like Bottas and Yo, but I suspect they were probably thinking we'll just put our drivers in 2026 and she'll be right, mate.
We'll
now all of a sudden, whereas now all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, we actually need like the colour science to lead the team in 2025 to move it forward so it's ready when we come in, and getting a lot more processes than in place for that. It's unfortunate for this year, like for Bottas and Yo, because it's just kind of been forgotten. It's the whole lot's been neglected, and it's just fallen behind everyone else.
Yeah, it's and the problem is you need to at least look like you want to be that place to be. You want to see people. Oh, that looks like a team I want to join.
That's the thing, and when you think with like when Renault was coming back in, I'm trying to think, they had Joyland Palmer and I think it was Hülkenberg for their first year, like which people actually wanted to go to the team. Like Hülkenberg's stocks were quite high at that point. And Joyland, he was the F2 champion.
So it looked like a
time
good
coming up. That's the thing. Like people wanted to be part of that, and when manufacturers have come in the past like that, people have actually been drawn to that. Whereas the Audi thing at the moment, the logic, as soon as Hamilton was announced, you're like, oh well, Sainz will be at Audi next year, and now it's like, well. Is he? And I mean, even the whole Renault thing at the moment as well.
Well,
he's not. He potentially could still be at Williams rather than one of these two factory teams.
Well, is it him? Yeah, because I've been hearing that he's the main holding up piece. Like it's not anyone else.
Yeah, he's the cork in the bottle because every team with a vacant seat and Red Bull are probably looking at Carlos for next year.
Well, speaking of Red Bull, Dave, I believe I've solved the problem, right? So for starters, Helmut Marko, which I'm just going to call Dr. Batshit, because he says one thing and then his other hand does another thing, and then he's like, "Oh, why does everyone think I'm bonkers?" Just
before you kick off on everything, he came out and said, "Oh, I don't even know why we've got a junior team if we're not." They came out and said, "This is a proper team now. We have proper sponsors." That was part of the signing Ricciardo and keeping Tsunoda in there. We have proper sponsors. We're a proper team. We're not just a junior team for Red Bull. We are a proper team.
Yeah, this is what I mean.
Now he's like, I don't know why we have this junior. It's not the whole messaging coming out of there at the end, like the whole change in the name and everything was to which I'm not sure how that distanced itself, but it was to distance itself from being the junior team.
Well, that's what I mean, because then he said, "Oh, I spoke to the shareholders, and they're like, this is a junior team. Why don't you have junior drivers?" And then I thought to myself, we should have junior drivers. Also, unrelated, this team is completely separate over here, but over here it's a junior team that only junior drivers, but it's a separate team that needs to run on its own, but you can't have anyone over the age of 6. But and it's just mind-boggling that I'm hoping that Checo screws up in the next 2 weeks. I think one of two things needs to happen, right?
Hoping it's a given.
Yeah. Checo either stuffs up or Dan does well. It doesn't even need to be both. I think if Dan finishes, and even if he misses out on points, and Checo finishes in the points but only gets 2, that won't be enough.
Yeah.
And then I think what they need to do is to say to Yuki, we'll give you 3 races. You can have the RB car for like a couple of weeks. If you do well with it, you get to keep it. If you don't, Dan goes in it for the rest of the season. because he's a marketing, wet dream, and then you will look after Liam.
But I still can't see them promoting Yuki.
No, they will never give Yuki a seat.
Yeah, that's a pipe dream thing. I think it's either Lawson going straight in, which I think would be a mistake.
Well, I got another question about that too.
Yeah. So I think it's either Lawson going straight in or Ricciardo getting promoted. And
the thing is, when Dan did his drive last year, remember he did the test drive, and he did his laps, and basically instantly Christian Horner came out and said, "Oh, the lap speeds he did, he'd be number 2 on the grid. Basically he's lost nothing. We're just got to train it out of him. But yeah, he's back. It's Super Dan." When Liam did his drive, when everyone was at Goodwood, no one mentioned the speeds. It kind of sounds like Liam went out, and I know that was like slightly different tests, but even if they were good results, he would have come out and said, "Oh, Liam still got it because he's a Red Bull driver." But instead they were like, "Oh, maybe you're not as, good with the Red Bull."
I think the key difference, Dan was doing a tyre test for Pirelli, whereas Liam was doing a filming day. So the key difference then is the tyres. Obviously, then Dan was going out.
But they would know that too in the test.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of noise around, like, in regards to, oh, well, you can't really look at Liam's times because he was on filming tyres. And there's always, like, that caveat on the thing, whereas everyone went with Dan, it was, he's quick.
Yeah.
So,
but like they must have seen something, because normally they would have come out and just said, Liam was fantastic. This is why he's our third driver. But instead it was all, it just seemed a little too quiet. Like there was like, how'd he go? And they're like, yeah, he did a filming day. But like, how'd he go? He fit in the car. He got out of the car. He did his 31 laps and then he left.
I just wonder if this is all something to do with the kicking Perez out. Then if they gush over Lawson and then chuck Lawson in the car, and then Perez is like, "Oh, you had this planned all along," and then there's some ramification, like before he misses the targets. Now, also something that I find very funny. Apparently, the contract extension, when they did the new contract, they changed the "can fire you" clauses.
The 100 point, right?
Well, the 100-point thing, and I think there's a few other things in there, but that wasn't, or that was different on his original contract. And then the extended contract that he signed earlier this year, all of a sudden had these clauses in it that he's not meeting now. And that was why they got him to sign the contract early and then announced it, so that you're under contract with these clauses in and you're not meeting them. Whereas if they dragged his contract out, they had no way of or it was harder to then fire him in the middle of the season. Whereas under the new contract, all of a sudden now they have all these reasons that they can fire him.
So are they? Yeah, because I've heard that there's a lot of performance. Like he's already 5 places below max, which he's not allowed to be.
Yeah, 100 points behind.
He's like 30 points behind max, which he can't be.
Yeah.
So, but essentially, it sounds like he's gonna if that 100-point one's true, mathematically, he can still recover that gap, but realistically, he can't recover 35 points in 2 races. Not when you're going against Max, who's probably going to get 2 podiums.
As someone put during the week, like Max can nearly take the next 2 races off, and Checo's not going to get. He's got 15 points in the last 6 races.
Yeah, well, as
which is
Rob's new favourite driver, Hulkenberg has done in 2 races.
Yeah. And that's just where it's ridiculous for someone in the best car.
Well, did you watch the Goodwood Red Bull section? So I
There
watched
was someone missing from a lot of those photos.
Well, yeah. So I watched it first with no sound because we were watching something else. I can't remember now. But then I watched it again with the sound. It only gets worse if you can hear what they're saying, Dave, because I've forgotten his name. Who's the commentator? Karun? Is he the F1 guy? He was there, and basically he just turns and goes like, "Hey, Dan, wouldn't it be cool if you were the second Red Bull driver? Wouldn't that be the coolest thing ever? Hey, crowd, why don't we cheer for how cool that would be?" Oh, Perez, I forgot you were here. Why are you still here? Anyway, I'm going to go talk to Mark Webber because he seems cool. And this David Coulthard guy, he seems like a lot of fun. Perez, why are you still here on the balcony? You can leave now.
Just on a side note with that, Mark Webber looked like he hadn't been working out much recently. Unless it was just a bad, like an odd fitting set of overalls. But he didn't look like the svelte Mark Webber that we've always dealt with.
He's been on Porsche promotional duties because the new Porsches came out a couple of months ago. I reckon he's just been doing a lot of meet and greets,
Porsche.
You know, eating hors d'oeuvres off plates and stuff. I mean, that being said, he's 50 and he looks pretty good for.
Oh, he'd outrun me still. Like, yeah. I mean, I am in a glass house throwing fucking stones everywhere right now. I'm just.
These are not walls; these are all glass, and
I'm just used to the svelte Mark Webber, and even after his retirement, he still stayed like super race fit.
Well, he did that Tasmania thing.
Yeah,
the Tasmania challenge.
Yeah. But, I don't know if it was just a bad fitting set of overalls or, but he just didn't look as Mark Webberish as normal. So.
Rob, I think it was probably for the Goodwood, but it just seemed like, it was a lot of the chat was basically, I'm just going to turn this way so you're not, you're not in the frame. He also just looks so awkward everywhere. Whenever there's 3 of them, I know Max and Dan have been like teammates before, so they've obviously got, even what was the tiny Red Bull reserve driver woman? The other Red Bull woman that she's like 4 foot nothing.
The whatever Academy.
Formula Academy. Yeah.
Because you can't call it a W series.
But she looked less awkward there. Like at least she,
Yeah, well, she probably knows that she's got a job after the summer break. Whereas, but the funny thing as well, like Perez is quite possibly going from being in the best car to not having a seat anywhere next year.
You don't reckon someone will take him?
Where does he end up? Like, so Haas would be the logical, but if they've already signed Ocon, well, they've got both their seats filled. Does Williams want the money now that Dalton's there and they've got some funding? Like they're going after science at the moment. Do you
reckon once Sainz decides he's going somewhere, and I'm assuming most F1 teams, if they think that Perez is going, is he like the second choice once?
I don't
go after him.
I don't think he is.
I mean, if you had the choice of Hulkenberg and Perez, you'd still kind of take Perez, wouldn't you?
Right now?
Not right now, but as a general long-term...
As long-term, I wouldn't take either of them.
I meant long term is for 1 year. That's a long.
Yeah. A McLaren IndyCar contract long term, or okay, Perez might come with $30 million or something in his back pocket, which helps the blow. But
just quickly, Dave, he comes with $30 million, right?
Mm.
What does losing what's the difference between first and second in the constructors?
Oh, yeah, but for Red Bull, it wouldn't make a lick of difference when you've got your budget for the year, 135 million plus you got driver salaries, you got Oracle that are paying $100 million a year to be on the side pod. You've got, Ford will put money in after this. Honda's been putting money in. I'm trying to think of all the other brands on the car. Red Bull are paying for Max's salary, and that's it. Red Bull are at the point where they're not throwing a heap of money into. And when you've got the prize money, if you got the Oracle deal and not even think about the prize money, you get $100 million of prize money or whatever winning the championship. So between that, you've got more than you can spend, and this is why Max
it's not really a concern then.
No, that's the thing. Whereas, say someone like Williams, even, you've got Doralson behind him and that, but you say $60 million coming out of F1 money, then you probably got 30, 40, $50 million worth of sponsorship. And then you've got to then plug the gap. Plus, you've got your marketing and drivers and that don't fall under the budget cap. Yeah. But do they go, we'll take this second-rate driver who's bringing a bag of money, which is what we kind of did with Sargent.
Yep.
Or do we tip in a bit of money ourselves and go for a better driver to try and get better results from it?
And I'm assuming the only way is up for Williams, right?
Yeah. Whether it will be difficult, and it will take time because they've obviously, they're working through their Excel problems.
One big Excel.
Yeah. Going over to Lotus Notes or something. I think they're making a big step up. But there's a lot of things like that they've got to work through and fix, which will take time. And they got a bit of. Well, see, that's the other thing. They got relief on the capital expenditure cap thing, where the lower teams are allowed to spend extra on capital. So Williams got relief on it so that they could actually spend more, which then Haas and that got a raise in what they could spend as well.
Well, Dave, Williams bought a Office 360 license so they can use better Excel.
They've moved up from Office 98 to
Office 97 to they've gone to Office 365. They've got everyone on the cloud, and they're off.
Yeah. What do you mean we just download it? We've been installing off these floppy disks.
My one says F1 2024. It's got all my config files on it for each track.
Oh, actually, I don't think I ever installed Office off floppy disk. I think I had a CD the first time. But I vaguely remember seeing a pile of floppy disks. It was maybe at school or something where we had to do a reinstall on a computer, and having a pile of floppy disks. Anyway, do we do some tipping for this week before we run out of time?
Yes.
The
problem is Rob's here because he told me his tips, but I feel the ones that I'm going to tell you, Dave, Rob's obviously going to change his mind because.
What if they go to Booby?
Oh, I mean, is Booby here? Booby's not here.
Booby's up here, so I'm sure Booby gave you his tips earlier.
Hello? Yeah, no, Booby, we're filming right now. We were just talking about you. You want to put your tips in first? Yeah, we can do that. You're feeling Jaguar strong again. I told you last time that didn't work. No, fine. Yeah, Jack. Yep, Lance. Okay. Hulkenberg. Yep. Albon and Ocon. Okay. All right, cool. I'll put them in. That was definitely a phone call, Dave. And Boogie
So what was that, Stroll?
So Stroll's going to win.
Yep.
Who else did he say? He said Albon and Ocon. And in 10th place, he wants a Hülkenberg.
Cool. That's nil point. I hate SharePoint.
I was using SharePoint this afternoon.
I'm going to shoot myself in the foot and go for a Piastri win. Max,
we're brave today.
Sorry?
We're being brave today.
Yeah, Max in second, and we'll go Leclerc third. Sainz third.
So okay. All right. I'm gonna go.
I've got to do 10th. I'll go Nando for 10th.
Nando.
Yeah.
Okay. Big call. I'm gonna go Lando to win.
Okay.
I feel like it's a McLaren weekend. Max second or you know what? Let's put Max in third because why not? I'm loaded up with Pepsi Max. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Look, Charles in charge will come second.
Yep.
And 10. Who's getting 10?
We're still waiting for Rob's tips as well.
Oh, we're waiting for Rob. Oh, he might call me just after I put in mine. I'm going to say Yuki's going to get 10.
Yuki.
What's that? Whoa. No way. I was just talking about you. You want to put your tips in as well, but you're on the chat. This doesn't make any sense. All right, you can tell me through here. You don't need to type them in. In fact, the ones that you type in, we'll just ignore. So what are we going? Hülkenberg to win. All right, Hülkenberg to win. Oh, wait, he's typing stuff. No, Rob, you said not to copy. I'll speak to you later.
Just coming in with Piastri.
Oh, Pastry, Carlos, Hamilton. No, you got to pick. Oh, Stroll 10th.
Hamilton.
Rob, you just hung up the phone. I can't put you on speaker.
Stroll 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tips are in.
We're looking good.
We'll see who's leading after this weekend.
Hopefully, probably Boovy. I feel like.
Well, you watch it rain and Stroll have the weekend of his life. Well, just on that, apparently the track's underwater at the moment.
So but it's going to be 30 degrees out there.
So it should dry out?
I'd hope so.
Okay. There we go. So we probably still will have racing this weekend.
Yeah. Well, let's check out the.
This isn't a secret sprint weekend either, is it?
No, is it?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think we got to wait till Coda for the next one.
Oh, so it's a fair wait then for.
Yeah, that's after the summer break. Once Red Bull changes its driver lineup.
So what you're saying is, could we get the perfect storm, Dave, of Dan in a Red Bull racing in Vegas?
Yeah, I do, and Coda.
I mean, the Vegas one's probably the more exciting one, just in general. For you know what? If this happens, Dan wins Vegas, barbecue ribs for all. Done.
Including those in the chat.
Those in the chat, we'll work out how to do it. But if Dan's in the Red Bull in Vegas and he wins, we will somehow organise barbecue ribs. Yeah. Including for Rob. I'll make special ribs for Rob. I don't know how you make them, but
yeah, it's yeah. I'm trying to. Could he have chicken ribs or something? Does that count?
Fish. I think it's fish.
Fish ribs. Okay. Why is that? What do I keep going on about? That's just ridiculous.
Everything.
Yeah. I got in trouble this week for my normal video. Apparently, someone wasn't happy with me.
I'm glad I'm only contained into here, where people.
Yeah. Oh God, that would with the big audience on that one.
So Dave, do you want to hear my solution for Red Bull next year?
Okay. Didn't we already do this?
We're ready to do this. So either Dan races in the Red Bull to the end of the year and then gracefully retires and becomes a Red Bull ambassador. And so him and who's his best mate, the snowboarder?
I'm not sure.
Scotty James or whatever. He can go off and do adventures. Then we have Max and Yuki in the real team. And then in the junior team, you have junior drivers, Liam, and that little kid, Isaac. Because I reckon he would be fun. He seems like an absolute wild card maniac, and we need him in the...
I've heard he's more unhinged than Yuki.
That's why we need him.
Yeah.
Now, either you put Liam in the big Red Bull, and then you have Yuki and Isaac together, and they become the super shouty brothers, and they just yell, and you let their radios talk to each other.
I honestly think that Dan will get promoted when they kick Perez out. Lawson will come into Toro Rosso, and then Lawson will be promoted for next year. And Hadjar will then take the spare seat, and Yuki will be exactly where it is.
So you reckon Dan? Because I think how many seasons do you reckon Dan has, like realistically left?
Dan will get to at least see out the end of the year, and then I suspect if he ends up at Red Bull, as long as Lawson does what he did last year at Toro Rosso, then this will be Dan's. They'll let him have the rest of the year in Red Bull, and then shuffle him over for Lawson coming through. Unless he does exceptionally well, and then they'll get Lawson to do a full season with Toro Rosso. But that's like Dan going out and probably, taking a couple of wins. He'd need to, I think, to continue. Yeah. If they keep Perez, though, I can see Dan staying at Toro Rosso next year as well.
Yeah, and then Lawson getting screwed over.
Yeah.
Why is Boovy putting in his tips for a second time?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you already did your tips, Boovy.
Boovy, you rang me just before. I mean, we all heard the phone call. Adrian doesn't seem to believe that I had these phone calls, but you put your tips in, Boovy.
I'm just noting the tips.
But they're not
his second one. They're not his official ones.
Yeah,
but it could be more fun. Just so I'll write this down, and then something that nearly happened that was really funny over the weekend.
Is Perez really going to get the boot? In our dreams, yes. To answer Rob, Dan needs to beat his teammate first. No, he doesn't, because we all know Yuki's not getting. Yuki could come second in the championship, and they'd still be like, he's not ready.
Yeah.
We don't think he's Red Bull material.
A funny little thing about the changing your answers and not doing so well. On the weekend with the IndyCar qualifying, so they had two races over the weekend, one Saturday, one Sunday, or Sunday and Monday here, but they did a combined qualifying session. So you went out. Your first lap was your qualifying lap for the first race. Your second lap was the qualifying for the second race. And a couple of the cars had problems with the new hybrid system. So one of them was Jack Harvey, who that's another story, but he'd done quite badly in his run. So when they the hybrid system didn't work, you can go out again, kind of thing. Fair enough, because he was very slow. Colton Herter was, at the time that he did his run, he was like first and second, I think, in the 2 qualifying sessions. And they're like, but there was a problem with the hybrid system. And they're like, well, you can run again if you want. And yeah, we want to run again. And then as everyone else ran, he was like pole and 4th or something like that. And then you're like, he could actually fuck this up. And he could end up a lot further down the thing. And then as it went down, because he then got to the end, and I think they were rolling the car forward because they had to roll it out of the pits to fill it back up with fuel so that it could go out for another run. And they said, oh, we'll give you new tyres and so you go out with a new, like it's a proper new qualifying run. And you heard him on the radio just as they're wheeling the car up the front for his run. And he's like, what happens if I don't go faster? And they're like, oh, well, you're forfeiting your times kind of thing. And you're like, this is going to be amazing. And then they stood there like with one of the officials, like they're going backward and forward. And it's like, best case scenario, you go out there and get 2 poles. Worst case scenario, you crash the car and then we don't have time to repair it for the race today kind of thing. And they're like, this is, there's a big risk here. In the end, they actually didn't go out for another run and he kept his, like the first lot of qualifying, and he was on pole for the first race. So, but I was just thinking, I'm like, come on, this is going to be awesome.
So if you set a time and then go out again, they don't. So it's not even a case of taking your best time. It's just taking the time.
So what had happened, because they'd had an issue with the hybrid unit. So there was 3 of them. There was Jack Harvey, Alex Rossi, and Colton Herter, who had an issue with the hybrid system on their run. And Jack Harvey's was the first one, and he'd actually run really slow. And so they said, like, oh, look, that was unfair. You can go again. And then when it happened to Colton, like it had happened to Alex Rossi, and I think he was a bit like, look, at the time he was right up the top, and he ended up, I think it was like 5th and 7th. And I think they were a bit like, well, it's fine. Like there's a lot of risk going back out, whatever, we may not improve, might crash the car and that kind of thing. Whereas Colton Herter was like, there's an issue. Like, we want to run again. Like, it's not fair, blah, 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 kind of thing. So and normally what happens, say, at the Indy 500 is situated like you kind of forfeit your time and go back out. So they'd said, oh, no, if you go back out, like you're saying those times aren't good enough, you lose them kind of thing. So at first they're like, yeah, let's go again. We'll go far. And then like, oh, this could have been a bad decision. Jack Harvey was in considerable amounts of pain, and apparently they had Connor Daly lined up ready to go for the race to get in that car, but because Jack Harvey decided that he was going to do the qualifying run, even though he's in considerable amount of pain, they wouldn't let Connor Daly start the car because he hadn't driven it beforehand. So Jack Harvey had to get into the car and start the race, and he ended up doing like 30 laps, which it's only a 20-second lap around there. So he was only a few minutes into the race, essentially, when he pulled out because he was in too much pain. And then for the second race, they actually let Connor Daly go out and do a few laps in the morning beforehand. And they're like, yeah, we've seen you do a few laps, you're good to go. So it was quite disappointing, but it's also a bit like, well, Jack Harvey, you dickhead, why did you go and qualify the car? Because they could have actually had Connor Daly qualify the car and then Jack Harvey start the race if you felt better. Because then they would have seen Connor Daly do laps in the car before the start of the race and been like, yeah, we've seen you, you're good to go. But because he didn't have a chance to do any laps before the race, Yeah, well, that's the funny thing because, I mean, Connor's been a full-time driver in the series previously. He's done lots of fill-in drives, and he'd done Indy this year. So he's probably doing more driving at the moment than most of the IndyCar drivers as it is. And yes, that's why they couldn't do a special session, because they had some concept at the time.
Well,
I don't know. I didn't know all of them. Yeah. I'd heard of Post Malone, but that was the only one.
Well, there is a big concert in America for the next, from someone I believe you may have heard of, a small up-and-coming rapper by the name of Mr. Slim Shady. Because if you enter somewhere, I didn't even look because it was you could win flights to America and see his concert, and then have a race before or after said concert.
How long do you get to stay in America?
I don't know. Probably just a weekend.
I mean, yeah, for a free holiday, like I'd sit through a concert.
Do they have concerts at all the F1 races?
No. It's something. I think we actually started that in Australia.
We had Kiss or someone years and years ago, didn't we?
I think we've had Kiss about 15 times within F1 and supercars over the years, because they keep trotting, which it frustrates me a little bit. But then you see, say, the bookface comments and stuff, like they'll have Kiss coming out, and you're like, right, you are just aiming that at the generation above us. Like, say people probably 50 and above. They're like, yeah, Kiss, kind of thing.
But are you going to watch the race? No.
Well, see, which they do get a lot of people coming along buying tickets, like just for the concert stuff. I'm trying to think who there was someone like Kiss at the Grand Prix, and I remember someone that I worked with that was supposedly into cars, and they bought tickets to the Grand Prix, and they went at like 7 o'clock on Sunday night or whatever. They didn't even buy, like, you had tickets for the Grand Prix. You could have actually like gone and watched cars racing. You are into, you tell me you're into cars. And yeah, they just went to, anyway. But then you see, I think they had Tones and I, can't remember if it was G-Flip, but say at Townsville, there was in that probably just under us generation of music. And then you get like the bookface, who are these people? Why would I want to go and see them at the racing? And you're like, oh, but that's probably what they need to try and get a younger generation of, or maybe doing like, say, in the Townsville thing where you maybe say the Saturday you have a, younger generation kind of bands and stuff. And then say the Sunday night, maybe having your bigger headliner, say your Kiss or your Akadaka or Guns N' Roses or whatever. Those kind of, I think it might have been Guns N' Roses they bought tickets for at the Grand Prix.
Oh, that
was someone like that. Yeah, I remember it being many. These kind of things have been happening for years. Could you imagine the track to town in Victoria? So we're straying here a bit from. So this year, Supercars at the New Zealand event was the first one to do it, where they actually drove the cars from the track on roads and drove them into the heart of town. So that then on the, I think it was on the Thursday, that then you get general people could come along and see the cars like within the town, not having to buy tickets, rah. But in New Zealand, like they're doing burnouts and stuff as they drive down the road, and like they're, going, because the cars as well, because they're not designed to just drive along at 60 k's an hour, which they actually added cooling in to do it in Darwin. Like they run extra fans and stuff. But a few of them are like, oh, well, I needed to put it in second gear and give it some wide open throttle to give, get a bit of airflow going in it. So they're blasting down, the 60k zone at 120 k's and stuff like that. And the New Zealand cops are a bit like, oh yeah, it's all right kind of thing. And then they come to Australia, and it's a little bit different on what they're allowed to do and that. And you can imagine that was in Darwin. You bring that down to Victoria, and it'd be like, where is your number plates?
You don't have indicators. What's going on?
Yeah.
Wasn't it years ago Lewis Hamilton got his speeding fine? Or
he was doing that. He got his car impounded, I think.
Impounded?
Yeah. I've just on that, Andrew, I've got a classic photo. It's a really grainy, but it's an awesome photo of them driving I think they're 956 Porsches when Sandown had the World Endurance Race back in like 88 or something like that. And there's actually photos of them driving down the Princess Highway from Sandown to Dandenong. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah, there it is. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. And you're like, I know that intersection.
That would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
But
I would struggle to see that happening today. You never know, but yeah. Doubtful.
Was I right in thinking did Red Bull do a thing over the Harbour Bridge many, many years ago?
There was. I remember. Mark Webber did one because he got in trouble. Because I think he might have been in the Williams at the time, and he drove over the Harbour Bridge, and they said, "Oh, you can only do 80 k's an hour." Yes, and he did like full I think he was like wide open throttle in like 50 got to, and they got out and they're like, "Oh, you went a bit fast," and he's like, "No, I was only doing 80."
Yes, there we go. He went over 27th of Feb.
Yeah. I think he was like well over 200 k's an hour.
What are they going to do? It's not like he would have paid the fine anyway.
Well, yeah. What do you do?
Who was it? Yeah. Max Mosley at the time would have been like, whatever, that looks sick. Here's some money. Go away. Leave us alone. This was cool.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you're going to do something like that, you may as well do it properly. And that's a bit like with the track to town thing. I mean, like, obviously, if they're in the middle of town, don't do burnouts. But like they were driving down the highway or whatever, and a couple of them, let a little bit loose, and it's on film and whatever. Like, let them have a bit of fun.
But also, Dave, if you're going to tell an F1 driver, hey, can you see this massive bridge that we've shut down for you for 2 hours? Can you just calmly drive across? None of them are going to be like, yep, done. Yeah. I'm going to watch as I calmly drive across. And especially you get a local, whoever's in that. Like you asked Ricardo, even Oscar, in his first season, they said, hey, Oscar, you're the youngest, so we think you're not going to muck around. He's 100% flooring it over wherever you're telling him. Because
something like
would be like, yeah.
Something like that, though, you think about driving across that in like your normal car with traffic around. Like, I know, driving over, say, the Westgate Bridge in Melbourne, you're driving like 80 k's in your car, there's traffic all around. It's so slow.
It's boring.
You could easily imagine the whole thing shut down and you're in a Formula One car that's struggling to drive along at 80. It's designed to be doing, 300 plus.
And that's what I told the cop. It's designed.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
You see, officer, if I drive it too slow, it overheats. So, in fact, I get less trouble if I'm revving it at 10,000 because it means the air can get in.
Exactly.
Look, you don't understand it, but let me drive away now.
I think it depends what they have on their display. So I think that you can have a speedo on your display that,
don't they look at
if you want it or not. Yeah. So I'm not sure. I haven't looked at displays that much for a long time. but I'm not sure if
Um,
anyone runs with like a speedo on the display or whether they, just have
when
like
I
gear
play
position and that.
F1 2018, Dave, it tells me my speed. But that's
Yeah.
a video game, so I don't know how realistic it is.
Yeah,
But-
that's
But
So-
it does tell me the revs. And
most of the
speed.
time they're more worried about gear position and then probably battery charge and things like that. So
And normally when I'm riding as well, there's less people. There's a ghost on the track though. I don't know how realistic ghosts are in real life, but like I did a couple of laps around Spa on the weekend. There's a constant ghost.
some of the just ahead of you couldn't keep up with the ghost. I used to love on like Gran Turismo. I remember when you did those lap challenge things with your mates, and then like there was one mate, and I'd follow him for like 90% of the lap, and then just like overtake through the last corner. So then he didn't have the ghost lap replay that was actually faster than him until like one corner. So he'd be thinking like, "Oh, this is awesome," kind of thing, and then the ghost would just blast like the last corner. Anyway, that's what I was going. The Formula One graphics are getting pretty good, and when they do those overlays and stuff with the qualifying runs, that's actually pretty good how they do that now.
Oh, I think they're just getting more and more ridiculous. I've seen like concepts of the Apple Vision thing where they have it.
Oh, yeah.
3D overlay. What's it called? Augmented reality, and they have it on like a cable.
Yeah. The only thing with that, like say for someone like me, it nearly gets like there's too much to focus on. Like like I'm, following the race. That's got me kind of in trance. Like I don't need 15 other things going on around me. I know some other people who can,
You need the race, and then you need Khaled vision that just follows DJ Khaled everywhere and watches him like walk around. And then you've got like the positions, and then you've got like, because isn't it in England they've got the red buttons where you can like switch driver.
Yeah, so you can just follow one driver, which on some of that, I'd find that quite interesting, especially F1's not so bad because there's not as many cars and things like that, and they probably tell the story fairly well most of the time. But say there was a classic example in Townsville where Cam Hill had actually a really good race, and you're a bit like it wasn't shown at all on TV, and you're like, he actually passed a lot of cars in the race, and that would be pretty cool where you had, say, if you could go back and then watch his onboard from the race and actually see how he got through the field. That would be a pretty good feature. But there's no, like, I wouldn't want to, say, be watching the race and, like, just watching it from Dan's car.
You know who I want to watch? Safety car comes out, straight to Stroll. I want to see him just like, oh, jeez. And then just have him, that's the thing, actually, Dave, that's the other thing I was saying with Sargent. Sargent obviously knows he's not the best driver on the field or whatever. He doesn't come across as like an arrogant man. I feel like he's almost too nice to be there. Whereas Lance, every time they cut to him, he's like, it's not my fault. I've done everything right. In fact, if I'm here, it means you're in the wrong. Because
and I think that's where Sargent's we've probably all been a bit harsh on Sargent, but then again,
Dave, may I present you my glass house? I don't know if you've realised it's not getting upgraded. It's still a glass house, and there's a lot of stones.
And the funny thing, once Sargent is gone next year, and Show will probably gone next year as well. My God, is Lance going to be copying it?
Oh, I hope
because he gets a fair bit of bad press right now. when you've lost other targets, he's going to cop it hard.
Is he must be like, because like his dad said, we're going to have a championship team, right? Fernando sort of.
His dad says a lot of things, so.
Yeah. Well, I feel like his dad and Helmut Marko should just get together and just talk at each other, not together. Just things that like, and maybe get Josh to come in there and be like, my son is a world champion, and then Papa Stroll can say, I have a world champion. What about your son? He goes, I have a world champion. The next question, please.
Yeah, and just lock them in a room somewhere so none of us have to listen to them ever again.
Yeah, just have them stored in a room or whatever. I just feel like there must a lot of these F1 team principals and Zach, because Zach's not the team principal, is he? But he acts like the team principal.
No, he's the team principal.
I thought he was just the CEO.
Oh, whatever. Like, he's not an owner. He's an employee. But then you've got like Fred Vasseur at Ferrari. He's just an employee, essentially. Williams.
What's his face?
Yeah, I've totally gone blank on his name at the moment.
What
James Vowles.
James Vowles.
Yeah, he's purely just an employee. Christian Horner doesn't have an ownership stake in Red Bull.
Well, I still stand by that Christian Horner at the end of the year will be on his horse.
This is where Marco is still trying to put his 2 cents in. Horner's marriage will go before he leaves Red Bull, I reckon.
You reckon? Well, yeah. I said it's one or the other. I said he's going to be given an ultimatum, and he'll be like, my heart is with Max. I mean, Red Bull.
I reckon, Jerry will get the heave-ho before.
Can you imagine him just being an angry man and watching? So 2025, he's going to lost Ginger Spice. He's going to be 10 races in, and he's probably not going to be winning the championship or the constructors. Toto's going to come up to him and go, is everything all right there, Christian? He's like, leave me alone. He goes, I made you pumpkin nickel sandwiches. They make everybody happy.
I still think they'll be all right for the championship, the Drivers' Championship next year.
Yeah, I don't think they will for constructors.
Depending, well, they'll have Daniel Wilson in the car, so they'll be right. They'll have a competitive number 2 next year.
And then
that's the other thing.
What about me?
Perez will be gone as well, so that even puts more highlight on Stroll. He's got all these other things around that are deflecting attention.
So you reckon once he'll be? Do you reckon mid 2025, Lance is going to be told by Papa Stroll, "Hey, let's take a walk."
They announced that new deal being 2 years, so he's for 25 and 26.
Why would you sign him though for one of the years of when the car changes? Like, you clearly don't think you've clearly, like, this is. I know we all know it's signing because he's your kid. Yeah. But normally you sign up to,
I think partially with that though as well. Then you've got a consistency of drivers, so you know where the car's at when the rules change. Which they'll be having a big upheaval as well because they're swapping engines too. Yeah. But if the car gets better, all of a sudden there's an improvement.
So Dave, the car could be a Red Bull and Lance would still find a way to plow into a wall and be like, Dad, that wasn't my fault. The wall jumped out of nowhere.
He's not Perez. Well, he's kind of Perez, has a few flashes each year. Surrounded by a heap of disappointment.
Well, I'm just looking at Lance. Lance has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 point finishes.
Yeah.
So and there's been 37 races, as we've discovered. So he's really not doing much. I mean, to be fair, his teammate, Rookie of the Year, is not doing a lot better this year.
No, well, that's the thing. Like, Alonso's really come off the boil too.
Yeah.
So I think we're only seconds away from a GP2 engine type of meltdown from him. I think it's building.
You reckon they'll? Well, again, back to my list of Mastradamus predictions. Lance is going to do another Lance thing, and I think that will get me an extra point. I'm gonna get.
You're the one keeping track of this, so you can have as many points as you want.
No. I'm not boovy. I'm honest. When I make outrageous claims, Dave, I want them to be correct, and I want people to see that I am. I want you to all see that I have crazy ideas, and as they say, a broken clock is right twice a day. I want to be right 13 times.
All right. On that note, I reckon we've covered off everything for this week.
Yes, that's my name for predicting all the correct stuff. Yep, I have a list.
He's a special kid.
I've been told I'm very special, unique, one of a kind.
All right. Enjoy the racing on the weekend, and we'll see you next week.